Hello, and thank you for clicking on my video presentation on clean air. My name is Natasha Lamperti. Air quality is extremely important for all of us in order to have a long and healthy lifespan. As you can see from this chart and the statistic from the EPA website, national air pollution concentrations on average have been declining since 1990. This is largely due to state and federal implementation of regulations and different technological advances. While air quality in the United States in general has been declining, 7 million people still die approximately prematurely every year from air pollution, according to the World Health Organization. This is deaths linked to outdoor and household air pollution caused by pneumonia, stroke, heart disease, and lung cancer. The United States, of course, does also still have premature deaths and things like asthma that come that are linked to air pollution. It's just, in general, our air quality is significantly better than some other countries. That being said, the United States makes up less than 5% of the world's population, and we consume nearly 20% of the world's energy. This just is something to think about moving forward with our role as a leader in renewable energy and different environmental programs, and also our role as a consumer. If you look at the country with the most polluted urban areas, you can see from this map, it's Pakistan. When you look at the countries with the most air pollution and the countries with the most premature deaths due to air pollution, the map looks mostly the same, which makes sense. While Delhi in India is the world's most polluted city, air quality in Pakistan's urban areas is on average worse. Pakistan in general is a pretty vulnerable country to air pollution and global warming. They have already allocated 6 to 14 billion in aid and relief for their country due to major flooding, prolonged drought, and unprecedented rainfall. The Pakistani government has a plan currently to plant 10 billion trees within the next 5 years to help fight climate change. They understand that trees can release oxygen, protect fast eroding landscape by reducing the risk of flooding, which are problems within the Pakistan. Trees in general are kind of amazing and very important, especially in urban cities, especially as urban populations are growing as human populations grow. Trees can act kind of as giant air filters that both clean and cool the air. They have particulate matters will stick to their leaves, especially if you have a mix of trees including like evergreen pines and evergreen oaks, because they have pretty large and leaves. But the particulate matters, which are actually pretty harmful for humans to ingest because our bodies just cannot deal with them, and so it's one of the main reasons air pollution can be so unhealthy for people. The particulate matters will stick to the leaves and then they'll just wash away with the next rainfall. The trees protect soil from things like erosion. Leaves provide compost, and the canopy of the tree helps provide shade and keep things cool and increase humidity in the vicinity around it. As you can also see, urban trees of the Greater London Authority area removed somewhere between 850 and 2,000 tons of particulate pollution from the air every year, which is pretty amazing. In Africa, which is another place that's very vulnerable to climate change, they have a plan to span the entire width of Africa with what is being called Africa's Great Green Wall. It was started in 2007 and is approximately 15% underway, and it will literally be a wall of trees which will span the width of Africa. And this is to help fight desert, desertification, or the changing of the landscape to desert. Trees are very important because, as previously mentioned, they protect the soil from erosion and from just wind blowing it away. They provide compost and coverage for the land, which helps to keep moisture in the soil, which of course is very important, especially when you're trying to stop it from becoming desert. This project has already provided a lot of jobs, sustainable jobs for local communities, as well as helping to reduce food vulnerability in local communities by helping to enrich the soil and allow people to grow food again. And yeah, and it's also done amazing things to the land in the areas where it's been. If you're inspired by this and want to help with tree planting in the Bay Area, one of the ways that you can get extra credit in this class is by volunteering with our city forest, which they do tree plantings every Saturday somewhere in the Bay Area. So it's a lot of fun. You should do it. In 1953, London had 5 days of extreme smog from December 5th to December 9th. It's known as one of the worst air pollution events in European history. It killed 4,000 people and left 100,000 in the hospital. This was partially caused by the sulfuric acid particles that were flying around in the air. This is what made the smog so deadly. But this also led to the Clean Air Act of 1956, which was very important in the UK for their focus on reducing smoke pollution. In Rotterdam, which is a city in the Netherlands, there's a designer, Dan Rosengard, who has created what he's calling the first smog vacuum. It was installed in the city as a Kickstarter campaign, and it's a 23-foot tall tower which can clean 300,000 cubic meters of air per hour. He's currently working with the Chinese government to install these vacuums in various cities in China, and as you can see, he's got a similar design for a bike that can clean the air as you cycle. He's also created these with the leftover smog particulates that his vacuum collects. He's created these smog-free rings, which is just these compressed smog particles, which part of the purchase of these goes into funding one of those towers. Another way that we know how to remove, so it is possible to remove CO2 directly from the atmosphere. Essentially what scientists do is they take CO2 grabbing chemicals that are either dissolved in water or in solid materials, and they put them in a large vent essentially and suck in air, and these chemicals will grab the CO2 from the air. They do need to span a large area, however, because for every 400 molecules of carbon dioxide, we have 1 million molecules of oxygen and nitrogen. So it's not easy to pull CO2 from the air. It also, in order to be able to recycle these chemicals, the CO2 grabbing chemicals, you need high amounts of heat to recycle and to be able to reuse them. And so it's important for us also to find a way to create the energy to be able to produce this heat without producing more CO2 in the air. It's very difficult to do this, as Jennifer Wilcock was explaining during her TED Talk, and it's seawater, soils, plants, rocks. They all naturally remove CO2 from the air, but they're not removing the CO2 from the air at the rate in which we're producing it. So these alternatives could be something that could work in addition to other other things like reduction in our production of CO2 and move towards more renewable energy and different other alternatives. But it is something that scientists are working on and that at least 2 commercial companies are currently doing. China is another interesting example of a country that's made active strides to increase their air quality. In 2015, a Chinese reporter created a documentary which highlighted really to the Chinese people China's air pollution problem and the approximate 1 million premature deaths it had caused. Since then, the Chinese government has really changed its attitude towards coal. They've essentially canceled a number of their coal factories and have really made a push and a move towards more renewable energy. For example, this is one of the largest dams. This is the largest dam in the world, and the Three Gorges Dam, which you can see on the screen. They are leading currently in hydroelectric, wind, and solar, and have been for the last few years, and are continuing to expand. In 2017, China was able to install 35 gigawatts of solar power in 7 months. The one thing to note is that some skeptics are talking about how China may be part of their strategy, may also be exporting some of their coal production to other countries. So in order to try and clean up their air at home, but continue to maybe produce some energy and production through coal, but just in different countries. But they definitely are currently one of the leaders in renewable air, and the air quality in China has also significantly increased in several of its cities, and they're continuing to work on this by also planning to plant a lot of trees and put a ton of money into infrastructure and things like public transit and a train system. If we look at the United States and clean air, the current administration has not been as active in its in any move towards renewable energy or any attempt to improve upon or add more restrictions to make air quality a concern. The current person leading the EPA's Clean Air Office, and he has been leading it since November, is pictured there on the left. It's corporate lawyer William L. Wareham. He, before he started working for the Trump administration, his role was predominantly working on behalf of chemical manufacturing, refineries, oil drillers, and coal buying power plants to try and weaken air pollution laws. And I think in a number of different ways, the Trump administration has made it known that their priority is not in strengthening the EPA and encouraging stronger stronger regulations and restrictions on carbon. It is, I think, to summarize, I think the technology is available. We have the technology, we also have a good understanding of what it takes for for a country to be able to improve its air quality, for to fight things like smog. What regulations really work, what technologies really work, and yeah, it's just a matter of implementing these things and making some of these things a priority, so that hopefully we can continue to have good air quality and improve air quality all over the world. Um, Here are some of the resources that I used. Thank you very much for listening, and have a good rest of your day.